Hello everybody, my name is Adrian Whitfield from Polarion Product Management, and I want to talk to you today about the new capability in Polarion 18.1, which is the new Doors Sync connector. So the new Doors Sync connector builds on top of some functionality that we added to Polarion previously around being able to import data really easily from IBM Doors into Polarion. So now with the synchronizer, just like the name suggests, and similar to what we already support for Jira and HP, you're able to not only import data from Doors, but also able to export data from Polarion back to Doors. So it allows essentially Doors to coexist with Polarion. In fact, that's one of the use cases that it provides support for. In terms of its capability, it's very similar. If you're already familiar with Jira and the way that HPQC works, it's very similar to those capabilities. And the great thing is that it allows customers to, if you like, gently migrate from IBM Doors to Polarion, because they can kind of keep IBM Doors around for a period of time, as long as they want, in fact. So here's some kind of sort of screenshots, and we'll kind of show it in action right now with a demonstration. So let's go over to Doors and take a look at the data that we want to bring into Polarion. So here we have our IBM Doors, and we've got a simple Doors project here. It's got two modules that we're interested in, the car alarm SRS and another module which is a high-level requirements document. And there's some relationships and links between these two formal documents. So if I go ahead and open up this module in Doors, and I'll just show you it so you can see kind of the structure, so that when we look at it in Polarion, you can see how we've represented things. And it'll also give us an idea of the types of decisions that we need to take when you are bringing data over from one system to another. So the way that we've kind of structured this Doors document is that we have we have our hierarchy, our requirements hierarchy structure that you can kind of see here, which is represented in Doors. And then we've got two custom attributes that we've created, one called requirement type and one called review feedback. And I'll just quickly kind of sort of scroll through this document. And you can see, well, first thing you can see here is that the requirements type attribute specifies the type of Doors object it is. So typically in requirements documents, we need to specify if something is a hard requirement, or perhaps it's just something for reference or information purposes. It's not contractual in any way. So whenever we see system requirement, we know that we've got a firm requirement definition. We've actually got two different types of requirement in our Doors module. We've got a system requirement, and then we've also got a software requirement as well. And then everything else is kind of like information. So we specify if it's a specific heading for a set of requirements, or perhaps, as I mentioned earlier, it's for information, and it just provides the reader with some additional verbiage or information about the subject matter. And then we've got this other attribute here called review feedback, and that's blank right now, and all will be revealed later in the demo as to what we're going to do with that. And then I guess the other thing I want to just sort of bring to mind is that we've got some relationships, some links inside the module. So this guy here, this one takes us to ID 57, which is which is a link back to this one here. So you can see the link coming back, the orange arrowhead. So that's a in module link, and then we've got two other links here, and that takes us to, and this is where just sort of doors works. Unless you've got the actual module running, you can't actually see where it references other than just the ID number. So if I click on that one, it will bring up, it's referencing another module in my project, and it just takes a second for it to pop up. As quickly as you like. There it comes. And you can see that it links to this high-level requirement here that we have here, okay, in this other document, which is kind of talking about the architecture that this particular subsystem is based upon. So that's really it right now. So what we intend to do is, as I said, import these two documents, these two formal modules, into Polarion, keep all the structure, keep all the information. In Polarion, because Polarion is very rich as far as how we define particular work items, we've created two different work items, system requirement and software requirement. So these requirements will be moved over into those different work items, and you'll see how we kind of structure everything in the Polarion Live document as well. We'll also bring over this field as well, this custom attribute, review feedback, and what we'll do is we'll make some changes and add some commentary about these requirements inside of Polarion, and then we will round trip that back or export that information back using the new Doors Sync connector back into Doors. So we'll be able to review some of the feedback that someone has made inside of Polarion indoors. So we're going all the way kind of around. And I guess just one more thing I want to just bring to mind in this Doors module is we've got a image that we've put in, which kind of shows the way that the car alarm system will visually notify the driver, and there's kind of like a screen on the dashboard here. It looks pretty futuristic, doesn't it? So perhaps that's something that's coming from this particular company around this particular subsystem. So exciting stuff. Right then, so let us bring up Polarion at this point. And as I said to you a moment ago, we need a place where we're going to move this information from Doors into Polarion. So what I've done is I've created two live docs, one called Car Alarm SRS and one called High Level Platform Requirements. These are the placeholders. These are the places where we're going to put the Doors requirements. And if you're familiar with Polarion, then I've kind of set this up already. I've kind of configured this. So in this document, I'm allowing these different types of work item. And as we talked about, the Doors spec has a system requirement, a software requirement. And then I've kind of set up the fields that I want to kind of display and how it's displayed and so on. You don't really need to worry about that just right now. And I've done the same thing for high level requirements. This one's a little bit more simple. We're only going to be interested in just the system requirements here. There's no other different types of requirement. All right, so hopefully that makes sense. So let's now go to, so you have to have administration options here to set up the connection to Doors and also be able to create these sync pairs. So first things first, let's create a connection to Doors. So we do this here, and we're going to just give it a name because we'll just call it Doors connection. That's pretty original, isn't it? And we create. So that's done. Okay, we've not connected to Doors yet, but we've created a kind of connection point. And it'll become evident that you can have multiple connections from Polarion, after all it's a web application, right, to different instances of Doors that you have running. For us, we're just going to have one connection because we're trying to keep things simple here. Anyway, next thing to do is to create a synchronization pair. You create a synchronization pair for each doors module. All right, because after all, each doors module is, there could be anything in it, right? So we need to figure out what information we're going to pull out of that doors module and then put it in the right place in Polarion. Once you've created a sync pair, you can reuse them. You can use them as a template. So if you've got quite an elaborate doors module, and then you have other modules that are similar to it, use similar attributes, similar data structures, you can reuse them. So it means that, the first one takes a bit of time to set up, but subsequent ones doesn't take as much time. So let's set up the sync pair for our SRS requirements document. I'll just call it that. Hit create, and we get this form. So the way it works is on the right hand side, and it's the same whether you're using Jira or HPQC, but on the right hand side we have what we're connecting to. So in this case it's doors, and on the left hand side we've got Polarion. So as we've already said, we know what we're going to put the doors data into, live docs, right? So the first thing we need to do is give the connector authentication rights so that it's able to say hello to Polarion and talk to Polarion. Well, I've already set that up. If you don't know how to set that up, you can find out in the online documentation, and I've given it an original name, connector. The next thing I do is I need to just say to this interface, where is my oh dear, I can't spell requirements, it's not very good. Where is my requirements document? And it's in the space requirements, and I need to bring up the car alarm SRS is the name of it. So car alarm SRS. And if I click this button here, use title as root, don't worry about that. You can look that up in the online help. But it's just because we put the name of the document inside of the document in a live doc, we're just saying to the connector, don't worry about that name and don't try and synchronize that back to doors, because you would essentially then have an additional object in doors. Anyway, I click on test connection, it sees the live doc, everything's good. Right, next, on the right hand side, we need to connect to doors and basically look at the module that we're interested in. So let me bring back up doors. I'm going to exit my formal module that I had previously open and the other one as well. And the reason why I do that is because if you're a doors user, you'll know that if you have a formal module open, you're in exclusive edit mode, right? So it means that no one else can write to the module, which includes the connector. So we need to make sure it's closed so that the connector has rights to properly take a look at it. So we need to tell Polarion which module to take a look at, and we do that using the doors way in which it defines what a module is and how it references it, and it's the URL. So we basically just copy that one, because remember it's the car alarm SRS that we're interested in, and I'll go back here and I'll paste that in, and then I'll hit test connection. That's it. It's super easy, and you need to give it a second for things to do its thing. The one thing I forgot to do, which I should do, is make sure that I actually bring up the connect to doors URL dialog. And what that is asking me to do is it asks me to run a DXL script on the doors end. So that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to run that. And if I go back to Polarion, give it another second or two, and we should get a green checkbox to say we're good to go. There we go. We've got a green checkbox. So the next thing to do is actually to define the mapping. All right. So if you remember, in our doors module, we had this way in which we have these different types of requirements. We've got system requirements and we've got software requirements. The default mapping with the connector is simple. It basically says, okay, if I see a doors object that just has a heading, then I know it's a heading. And if I see a doors object that has a object text, then I know it's a requirement. And it's basically a simple mapping, but we want a more sophisticated mapping. So what we need to do is it's asking me for advanced mapping type, what is it, what attribute do you want to use for this advanced mapping type? Now in doors, we've defined an advanced mapping or an attribute called requirements type. So that's what we're going to use as our, if you like, our anchor for our mappings. So again, once you do that, it takes a second for the connector to kind of like reconfigure. And at this point now, this is when I can start adding my my mappings. So if the requirements type is empty, and I think I may have some in there, I'm just going to specify it's going to get mapped to doors heading. For the next one, where I've got a heading, that's going to map to a doors heading work item. For information, I'm going to map that to information. For software requirement, I'm going to map that to software requirement. And for system requirement, I'm going to map that to system requirement as well. So I'm done there. So I've done the top level type mapping. The next is the field mappings. So these are particular fields that are available for all of those mapping types above. All right, so the first one is already filled out for us. We don't need to worry about that one. So now let's add some ones that we know we need. So first things first, we need the heading, right? That's the title, if you like, in doors. And we're going to map that in Polarion to the title field, all right? The next one is the object text, because that's primarily where you put your requirements description. So that's going to be mapped in Polarion to description. The next thing that we're going to do is, remember I said that there was some images or an image in the doors module. Well, we're going to take those images, which are classified as attachments, and we're going to map those to attachments in Polarion. And then finally, we're going to look at relations. Relations are links, right? So we're going to map a relationship or relations attribute in or field in doors to a linked work item in Polarion. Now, you'll see here that all of these things say bidirectional. That allows the information to kind of go back and forth, obviously. Remember I said that doors is on the right and Polarion is on the left. Just for completeness, I'm just going to change those to right to left. It kind of has priority, if you like, but it's not really, you don't really need to worry about that unless you've got things changing on both sides at the same time and you have to kind of deal with that kind of scenario. All right, so that is for all of the fields. Now there's one other thing that I'm going to do. For software requirement and system requirement, they have an additional field that is called review feedback. And remember, that's the thing that we're going to, well, that's the field that we're going to kind of update in Polarion, and it's going to synchronize back to doors. So it's going to go from left to right. And I'm going to do the same thing for the system requirement as well. Review feedback and go to review feedback there. Right. So I'm going to hit save. And we're done. That's it. That's creating the synchronization pair. All right. So yes, it takes a little bit of time, But you know, once you've done it, right? It's all done. So at that point now, I can execute the sync pair. So I'm going to so I clicked on it. You'll see that when you click on it, you see a log. You can go directly to a log file. The other way, which is quite nice, is what you can do is you can go to the monitor window, okay, and I just refresh that, and you can see here that the synchronization has begun. So we'll give it a second or two for it to do its magic. Okay, it's at 50% now. Okay, so it's done. So let's go up to our requirements document, car alarm SRS, and here you can see the imported doors module. So you can see, you know, all of the hierarchy is completely like maintained. We've got these different graphical icons to depict whether it's a heading. If you recall, the question marks were information. Okay, and I keep scrolling down and I can see that these icons, these represent system requirements, all right? And then the blue ones indicate that they're software requirements. And one of the software requirements had an in-module link to another part of the document, and you can see that here, you see. This particular requirement, this software requirement here, is not only a parent of this 313, but it also relates to references will be added here, which is an information work item. So the in links, the in module links have been created. There were some other links in this document which go to the other module. Now they're not here yet because we haven't imported the other module yet. So that's the next thing that we need to do. So let's go back to our connector and we're going to add another synchronization pair. And this one is for our high level requirements document. Okay, so we hit create. And this one's pretty simple. So I'm just going to kind of crank this one out super quick here, so you can kind of follow along with me. Requirements, and I just jogged my memory what we called it again. HL platform requirements. HL platform requirements. Let's test the connection. Okay, very good. Right, next one, the module. Well, I need to bring up doors again. So let me do that. So I need to get the URL that doors uses to identify the high-level requirements module. And if you remember, do you remember from earlier? We do that from selecting the module and clicking the right mouse button, selecting properties. You see URL here. We click on copy the URL. We go back to Polarion and we'll paste that one in, and then we hit test connection. And it should just take a couple of seconds and we should get the green checkbox. There it is. Very good. Right. So this type mapping, we're going to do a simple type mapping. We won't do kind of like the advanced mapping because after all the module was pretty simplistic. We can just map headings to headings and we can map requirements. So anything that's got object text, we're going to map that to system requirements. So that's that, and then we do our mapping for all of the fields that are applicable to these different types. So we do object heading, gets mapped to title, we map object text to descriptions, we map relations to link work items. And that's it, because we don't have any images in this particular module, and we don't have any other attributes, custom attributes in the module either. So we click on save. So that one was easy, right? So we just click on execute, and I'll go back here, and then I'll go to my monitor window, and I'll refresh, and you can see now, look, that the synchronization has begun. So by the way, obviously, because these are appearing in the monitor window, you can set up this to happen automatically, right? So you could set up a job and start these and basically start these at periodic times, maybe once a day at the end of the day, or maybe several times a day. It's kind of like up to you how you may decide you might want to work and kind of run these synchronizations. But now that we've set up these two different sync pairs, you'll see that as I start to modify the data, then it's very easy, obviously, just to kind of run these and get the data on each side synchronized. So it's done it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the document. So that's our high-level requirements document, and you can see super simple structure, just two requirements in fact. But what we're interested in is, of course, that one of the requirements down here was linked to the other module, or the other now the other live document, and these two other Polarion work items. So obviously, that's kind of cool, because you can see that we have a relationship there. And then obviously, if I go back to the car alarm and just sort of refresh the document, and then go down to those requirements, which I've kind of forgotten which they were. It's these two here. You can see that there's now links from 31111 here. You can see that that relates to CAP 570, which is in the other document, and also that one as well. Okay, so basically we've got all the data over now. We've got the links existing between the documents. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an update in Polarion, and I'm going to update this field, and I'm going to say, not sure if we can meet this requirement. Okay, I'm going to hit save. All right. So that's now updated. Okay, you can see that. I'm going to go back to the connector, and I'm going to rerun or re-execute the SRS requirements doc synchronization pair, because that was the obviously that's the synchronization pair that's associated with this Polarion live doc. All right. Okay, so let us go back to doors. So I'm just going to make a note of that. That was 3111. All right, so let's go back to doors, and let me open up SRS, car alarm SRS, and we'll go to 3111. Okay, make that screen bigger. I'll bring up my all attributes view. And we'll scroll down to 3111. There we go. And you can see here that Polarion has now populated this field in this doors formal module. So we're getting information back from Polarion. So to summarize then, the synchronization capability provides a lot of capability. You create these different sync pairs for each of the doors modules that you would like to synchronize with Polarion. You can choose whether you want bidirectional or unidirectional synchronization. So you need to think about upfront, do you intend to change this field in Polarion, or doors for that matter? And then you set up your synchronization pair with that in mind. A lot of powerful capability built into the synchronization capability. So therefore you need to be very careful about how you set this up, because after all you're giving it write access, so it's able to write to your your doors modules or your Polarion live docs. So I always say to people that it's always good to have a backup plan in place, just in case, right? Just in case. Now you're probably going to have the backup anyway, because after all, you're probably working with data that you obviously have backups for, but always worth having the backup so that you can return to a previous state if absolutely necessary. But I think with careful planning up front and careful configuration of the sync pairs, then you can obviously avoid undesirable behaviors. Well, I very much hope you've enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. My name is Adrian Whitfield from the Polarion product management team, and I will see you next time. Thank you very much.